Chapter 4 Dangerous. I thought about just not wearing the orange patrol belt to lunch. I thought about it for 3 seconds or so. Then I remembered Mrs. Carp. She would be in the cafeteria too, and she had said I would wear the thing for the rest of the week. I guess she thought wearing the belt was supposed to be an honor. Maybe like having a black belt in karate, except it wasn't. So I pulled the thing out of my desk. I looped it over one shoulder, hooked it around my waist, grabbed my lunch, and went out into the hall. Right away, a group of fourth-grade girls started to point at me and giggle, but I just held my head up high and walked toward the cafeteria. I kept walking, and I said to myself, I can live through this. I know I can do this. And I just pretended that nothing was the matter. When I got to the cafeteria, I looked for Willie, but he wasn't at our regular table. Then I saw him in the milk line. When I went over to say hi, Willie started talking to me like a spy. He kept looking straight ahead, and he tried not to move his lips. He whispered, I can't eat with you today. I whispered back, How come? He said, Mrs. Carp, she'll know it was me. What do you mean? I asked. Willie said, Me. I left that big mess yesterday. I said, but I'll tell her we played rock, paper, scissors and I lost. Willie shook his head. Better not. See you at recess. And maybe Willie was right, because Mrs. Carp was already prowling around the lunchroom. She was on the lookout for trashers. So I got some milk and went to find a place to sit, and as I looked around the cafeteria, it felt like there was a big sign at every table, and the sign said, No teacher's pets allowed. Even the table where I usually sat with Willie was filled up. There was only one table, and there was a reason it was empty. It was the one next to the teacher's table. Because at our school, the teachers get lunch for free, except it's not really free. To get a free lunch, they have to eat in the cafeteria when their class eats. That was Mrs. Carp's idea, to help keep the lunchroom quieter. So I went to the empty table and sat down, alone, just me, and my orange patrol belt. And I said to myself, I can live through this. I know I can. I can do this. I opened up my lunch bag, and that made me feel better right away. My mom had packed chocolate pudding, plus Fig Newtons, 2 desserts. So I wanted to get the rest of my food out of the way fast. I had just taken a huge bite out of a bologna sandwich when a voice behind me said, Is this seat taken? The teacher's table is too crowded today. It was Miss Cott, my art teacher, and before I could chew or swallow or say a word, she sat down right next to me, ripped the lid off a Tupperware tub, and started eating a salad that smelled like rotten eggs and onions. And she sat there, next to me. When she wasn't jamming salad into her mouth, she was smiling at me and chatting away like she was my best friend or something. I stopped chewing and looked around the room. About half the kids in the cafeteria were staring at me, staring at us, at me and Miss Cott, and I could see what they were thinking. It was all over their faces, as plain as grape jelly. Jake Drake is such a teacher's pet that he even eats lunch with one. I finished my sandwich and then ate my 2 desserts so fast I didn't even taste them. Then I looked sideways at Miss Cott and said, Gotta go. And before she could say anything, I grabbed my garbage and left. I went straight across the room, dumped my trash, and went out the side door to the playground. The first thing I did was take off the orange belt and stuff it in my pocket, because Mrs. Carp never said I had to wear it during recess. Willie waved at me from the other side of the playground, and I ran over to meet him. The sun was shining, the sky was blue, and birds were singing. It was a beautiful May afternoon. It was recess, and I had survived lunch. I started to feel okay again. Just before I got to Willie, 3 fifth-graders jumped off the jungle gym and caught up to me. I stopped and said, Hi. The biggest kid looked familiar, but I didn't know his name. He gave me this mean smile and said, Hey, garbage guy, you better put your little belt back on. I see some trash over there by the fence. Then the one who was wearing a baseball hat said, Yeah, and maybe you should get your fake horsey and ride it around the playground for us. They laughed and high-fived each other, and all 3 of them got closer and started chanting, Jake Drake, Jake Drake, Jake Drake, Jake Drake. Then they got right up into my face. Jake Drake, Jake, Drake, Jake, Drake, Jake, Drake. And I just couldn't take it. So I grabbed the guy with the baseball hat and pushed him as hard as I could right into the other two kids. They weren't ready for that, and all three of them lost their balance and fell down in a heap on the grass, and they stopped chanting my name. They began to scramble around, trying to get up, and I could see it was time to get out of there. I turned to run, but I bumped into someone. It was Mrs. Carp, standing right there, looking very tall and very angry. "What's going on here? You boys, get up off the ground. Get up off the ground this instant." Those kids had been mean to me, but still I was the one who pushed first. I was the one who had started the fighting, so I said, "Mrs. Carp, I—" And she said, "I know, Jake. You didn't have anything to do with this. Of course not." Then she frowned at the other kids. "You boys, follow me to the office now." And as the fifth graders walked away behind Miss Carp, the one at the end of the line, the biggest one, turned to look at me. He narrowed his eyes and pointed at me, and I could see his mouth move. He didn't make a sound, but I saw what he said. He said, "I'm gonna get you." And I didn't blame him. It wasn't fair. I was the one who started fighting, but Mrs. Carp didn't see it. Willie came over and said, "That was awesome! I thought we were going to have to fight all three of them at once." I just nodded. Everything had happened so fast. Willie said, "But I don't think I'd want to be you right now. That big kid? You know who he is, right?" I shook my head, and Willie said, "No? You don't know who that is? That's Danny Grumpson, Ben's big brother. He's only the toughest kid in the whole school, that's all." And standing there on the playground with Willie going on and on about Danny Grumpson, something suddenly became very clear to me. Being a teacher's pet can be dangerous. Very dangerous.